So welcome to today's video. If you may have seen my video from last week about cochineal red, I already mentioned that we will take a closer look this week on a color which is related to the genuine carmine. And this color is Paynesgrey, and I said it is a very well-known color, so I think most of you have used or at least heard of Paynesgrey. And in my streams on Twitch, I mention a lot that this color is completely different from depending on which brand you're buying, like for example sepia or indigo or neutral tint. Paynesgrey can be made from various pigments because every brand has their own formulation. So the colors you are getting often looking from 2 different or 5 different brands, completely different to each other. But of course, there once was an original version of Paynesgrey, and we will be mixing this one today. But first I want to show you the one on dot cards I don't have in a pen or a tube. That was the Paynesgrey from Daniel Smith. Some brands like Daniel Smith or Schmincke, for example, have a Paynesgrey and a Paynesgrey bluish. I don't have the Paynesgrey bluish from Schmincke Horadam, for example, so that's the reason why I'm showing you this one here. I thought to include these like in other videos I do, so that you can at least see a little swatch of the color, even when I don't have the color itself in pen or tube form. So, and I have, I think, two more. I don't have the one from Rosa Gallery. I think it was sold out when I bought my single tubes. This is this one. You also can see the pigments they are using. And I show you one more, and that is from the Da Vinci Paint Company. In Germany, sadly we don't have any shops selling Da Vinci paints. I have one. I bought the dot card and one pan set from them directly, but shipping costs and customs are so damn expensive that sadly I won't be able to buy a lot of their paints. I really do like the set I have, but importing them to Germany is super expensive, sadly. Yeah, so that's why I don't have the color, because it's not included in the set I have. But at least I have the dot card. When some of you are who are watching are from the US, then you will be getting much more easily to get some of the Da Vinci paints. Not be confused with the German brand Da Vinci, which are making brushes. Those two are not related at all. As far as I know, the paint company, the full name is the Da Vinci Paint Company, when I'm not misinformed, and the German brand only is known as Da Vinci. So, like I said, the cochineal red, our NR4 pigment, is related to the Paynesgrey. And that is because there is, of course, an original formulation of this version, and the reason why every brand uses a different formulation today is just because 2 of 3 pigments used in the original version aren't lightfast. So of course the various brands switched to lightfast versions. So the people who uses the colors won't be in the same problem. That as old paintings nowadays, where 2 of 3 pigments may be faded over time, then this is really bad if you want to hang up your wall. Of course, you can work perfectly with non-lightfast pigments if you don't want to hang it up a wall, sell, or gift it to someone. I do use a lot of non-lightfast sets as well for sketchbook works, for some training where I don't need to use my best, most expensive paints, for example, or a lot in adult coloring, because of course, when you are ready with the coloring, you close the book. Normally, I don't hang it up somewhere, so it doesn't have to be lightfast. So the original version of Paynesgrey is made from yellow ochre, and I decided to use my yellow ochre from Winsor Newton Professional because it is a PY43, and I was not sure, but or better said, I didn't want to start a super big research about iron oxides if in the time William Payne, this was a British painter who created Paynesgrey, if there already was the production of synthetic iron oxides. So I decided to go for PY43 and not a PY42. The 42 is the synthetic yellow iron oxide, and the 43 is the natural yellow iron oxide. Of course, with earth colors, depending from where the company uses the pigments on each area, in not only in one country, but depending on each area in a country, the color can be very different. I decided to use a version which is more yellowish and not so deep brownish, because we are using 3 primary colors: a blue, a red, and a yellow, and I think it works better that way. And I decided to use one, like I said, which is a little bit brighter, more on the yellowy side. Of course, you could use a transparent yellow iron oxide and get a complete different result as well. But when I watched up some of his drawings, it didn't look like it was a completely transparent one. So the red, of course, is our cochineal red, NR4, natural red number 4. And the blue I've used is a Prussian blue, PB27. I've also seen some websites mentioning the use of indigo instead of Prussian blue, but in my research I found out that all these recipes were around the more around the 20th centuries, using the indigo, and that the original versions from the end of the 8th century, which was created and used by William Payne, is the version with the Prussian blue. That's the reason why I said I will use, of course, the original version with Prussian blue. And I think also because genuine indigo is only available in watercolors from some hand artisans making paints by themselves by hand, and not from any of the major brands. So it is not so easy to get, and Prussian blue is a color which is very cheap, and it is contained in a lot of starter sets. So I think probably most of you will have a Prussian blue, but probably only a few will ever have bought genuine indigo. So it is much more easily available as well. Of course, I don't have a recipe where it says how much of each paint to use. So that was something I have had to do by try and error. I saw that this version is still too reddish, so I added more blue and I added more of the yellow to neutralize this more. And I will do in the end of the video again completely do this mix again, because after it dried, it appeared to me to be a little bit too much on the violetish side. I did look up um, uh, gradient wash of the color of this original mixture, and it is more on the bluish side, and that's the reason why I did it again in the end of the video. And also I did my own version with only lightfast pigments, which is in the color shade completely similar to our original one. So if you are interested in recreating this color but in a lightfast version, then you will see it in the end of the video. So we will swatching this mixture when I am ready with it, and then we will do all the versions of the different brands. I have a second page as well, like in the Carmine video. If you haven't seen the video about Carmine, I will definitely put a link in the description box below, so you can check it out easily if you haven't already. So some of the information I found about Paynesgrey and of course William Payne I wanted to share in this video with you as well. I have seen different writing Payne with an A Y or with an EY, and I never was really sure which one is now the real version, and it is the one with the A. It is named, like I said, after William Payne. He was a British painter. He was born on the 4th of March in the year 1760 in Exeter, Britain, and he died in August 1830 in London. So he was exactly 70 years old when he died. Yeah, William Payne invented a lot of things in relation to watercolor painting. And he worked as an watercolor art teacher. And for that, he was very much criticized at his time by all the serious artists because of his teaching of techniques, because they said he delivers the people step-by-step instruction, making art easier to learn for everyone. And maybe they were a little bit scared that when people are able to paint themselves, that they won't get enough money, or I don't know, but I think they feel threatened a little bit about it, and that's why he really, really get a lot of criticism from them. But it seems that didn't change his mind, and he still did his teachings. But a lot of the techniques he invented wasn't really new, because there were Chinese painters in the in the 15th century which uses those techniques already. So it wasn't new. It was maybe rediscovered, or at least discovered for the western part of the world, where it was not as known as maybe in the Asian part of the world. So yeah, of course he invented the Paynesgrey that we know already, but also in techniques working with a splitted brush to give form and foliage, dragging tints to give textures to the foreground, taking out forms of lights by wetting the surface, and rubbing with bread and rag. So that was something I found very, very, very surreal, because I would never thought about using a piece of bread to lift some color. Normally we do it with either a damp or drier brush or a piece of cloth or some paper towel or something like that. So that was very, very surreal for me to read. Also, he invented two other things. And of course, like I said, it was not new, but new to the Western world. Abandoning the use of outlines with a pen, so working completely without outlines, and using a dry brush for stone-like textures, for example, as well. So the first version we are swatching here now is the one from Winsor & Newton Professional. They are using PB15, that is a phthalo blue, PBK6, that's a lamp black, and a PV19, which is our quinacridone rose. And you see easily that this version is much more bluish than the version I created now by myself. And you will see with our next swatch that it is completely different to this one as well. That's what I meant, that all the versions are so different in depending on which brand you're using. So this is a company from Belgium. The name is Blocks. They make this big ceramic pans I absolutely love, which have the nice brush rest in the middle. They are sadly really, really expensive, so I don't own a lot of them. Only colors like Paynesgrey I love to use a lot. So there they use PBK 11, that's an black iron oxide, also known as lunar black or Mars black. It's a very granulating pigment. A PB29 ultramarine blue, which is another granulating pigment, and a PB15 column 1, that's again phthalo blue. And you can see easily that this one is not even close in its hue to the Winsor & Newton one. So that's I already knew that the shades are very different from brands to brands because every brand uses their own formulation. But to see it that close to each other really was eye-opening at how much different they really are. Because when you are painting, you always have this in your head, your own imagination, how the color always looks like or mostly looks like, and you don't have 50 different versions of the color in your head. Normally when someone say Paynesgrey, you are thinking of one version normally. So yeah, having so many different versions really was was a great way to experience how drastically the differences are really. So the next one I'm swatching is from Sennelier, from their La Aquarelle, so their artist grade range. They're using PV19 Green Rose again, PBK7, that is, I think, some of coal black pigment. I'm not so sure with the PBK 6, 7, 8. Can't seem to memorize that very well. The PB15 column 1, again, a phthalo blue. This shade is, this color is more bluish shaded than the Blocks version. Not as strongly as the Winsor Newton, but yeah, I must say it's a nice, very nice version. I don't like the versions who appear more black, more blue than black, blackish or grayish. A little bit of blue is fine. That is what Paynesgrey is for me. Otherwise, I use normally a neutral tint. But there are some brands which versions looks more like a form of indigo, and that is something I don't personally like for my Paynesgrey. So this one here is from White Nights. It is PBK7, PB15, again phthalo blue, and a PB23, so a dioxazine violet. That is a unique choice because dioxazine violet isn't something you see a lot. Many brands have either or both phthalo blue or an ultramarine blue. The use of a black like a PBK 6 or 7 or sometimes a PBK 9 ivory black is very common as well. But the use of this violet pigment is not so widely spread here. So now we'll be swatching Schmincke Horadam, so the artist grade range, and I will be swatching the Schmincke Akademie next to this one because they're using the same pigments. They're using a PR101, so a synthetic red iron oxide, PB29 ultramarine blue, and a PBK7. But of course, being the Horadam line being artist grade, it is more pigmented than the Academy version, so I can't get the Academy version that dark. I know when you're looking at the wet swatches, they appear very similar, but in my dried versions, I have one area in the Horadam version which is black, and I don't have that dark areas in the Academy version, for example. So I'm sorry, I have to drink some water in between, but because I'm recording this uh, on the first day of the new year, and like in the video last week, because it was I did the sound stuff yesterday, so it's only one day in between for me, even when there are 1 week between the videos, and I still have a nasty cold, so I'm sorry if I sound not so good. So the next one we will be swatching are two versions from Paul Rubens. And we have a new and an old version here. This in the pan here will be the newer version from a set I've bought around beginning of 2023. And the old version is from my shell set. I will put a link in the description box below if you haven't seen the video already. And you are interested, you can check it up. This is a very beautiful set made with real shells on top. It looks very beautiful. And this is a very old set I have, and the version here is completely different. It is one of those super blue versions which are for me more close to an indigo than Paynesgrey because it's more blue than anything else. And I will put also a link from a speed paint video where I've used mainly this set in the description box below. The name is The Death and I. And I've used this color for the robe of the death, and wasn't satisfied with it because I realized then that the version here is super bluish, and then I had to go on top with another color to get the gray blackish version I wanted to have. So the version here, which is very bluish, is made from PB29 ultramarine blue, PB15 phthalo blue, and PBK9, which is ivory black. For all of you who are vegan, that is always a pigment to be aware of because it is made from burnt animal bones, which are waste product of the food industry. At least it is used in some way. But if you're vegan, of course, this color isn't vegan, and all mixes containing a PBK9 aren't vegan. So, like I said, just for you who are vegans to be aware of. The new version uses exactly the same pigment combinations than both Schmincke versions, PR101, PBK7 and PB29, and you can see easily now that it is a complete different color. I would say that the Schmincke versions are a little bit more warmer, and the Paul Rubens version are a little bit more on the cooler side. So yeah, it is just a thing of your personal preference, what you like more, and also depending on what kind of art you're doing and how you are working with your materials. And I wouldn't say one of those is bad in quality, but it is just a mere kind of preference. When there are versions, probably more on the second page, which are using non-lightfast pigments, for example, then I will definitely mention that is the only thing I personally say you have really to be aware of, because if you are working a lot for selling your art, or want to gift it or hang it up on your wall by yourself, then you have to use definitely light fast pigments, or else your colors will fade rather quickly. That is also the reason why the original mixture isn't used, and all the brands offer their own version, because the original version containing 2 non-light fast pigment in a 3 pigment mix would leave after a while a rather disappointing, probably mainly yellowish color behind, and that isn't something we want. So of course all the brands using their own versions. So the version here now is from Daniel Smith. It is the Paynes Blue Gray. That was in fact my very first Paynesgrey I ever got. It is mixture of only 2 pigments. They use PB60, which is an inland thrain blue, and a PBK6. So the next version we will be swatching is from an Italian brand named Mary. I think a lot of you already know the brand. And this is one which is more blue than anything else as well. I know the Winsor Newton one look super, super blue here, but it is not as strong in reality. It is not like the Paul Rubens or the Mary one. Those are more indigo than anything else, and especially the Mary one, because when I look up at the pigment information on the tube, it says Indaco Sintetico, which translate to synthetic indigo, and it would be PB66. And indigo isn't light fast. It doesn't matter if it's the natural version or the synthetic version, so the color is definitely not light fast. And they also contain a color which I never heard of before, called Wet Blue 1, and I've looked it up and it said something like indigo white, so probably some kind of lighter indigo version maybe, which probably isn't light fast as well. So this is a color I would say as a replacement for indigo good, as a Paynesgrey not so good, and in case of light fastness it probably is very non-light fast. So yeah, that is something definitely you have to be aware of. So this version here is from Rembrandt, of course, made by Royal Talents, a company from the Netherlands. They use PBK6 and PB15. It's a very nice version. So when I look up here, this page, I would say the versions I like the most here, probably the core version we are swatching next, the Rembrandt version, and I would say the Sennelier and the White Knights are also very similar to my tastes. So yeah, that would probably the ones from this page. I would say I would definitely buy again when mine are empty. To be aware of is that the core color I'm swatching now is from the core mini set, so it is their formulation for pans and not in the tube version. I'm not quite sure how much they are different to each other, but the colors are extruded and not poured, so there may be a different formulation for them. I'm not sure, but definitely I have a very, very old version of the core mini set, and they changed the formulation, I think, beginning last or 2022, somewhere around. They changed the formulation for the tube, pan sets. So if you're buying now a new core mini set, the pans are different than the versions I was swatching. I'm honestly not quite sure how much it has an influence. I've seen a video about it so much time ago, I can't remember it. But yeah, I think if you're really, really interested in it, you may be able to look it up in the internet. There probably someone has tested and compared it already. So next page, we are starting with Paul Rubens again, but this time from the student grade set, for my tube set, from the Coraline line, that is the student grade paints from Paul Rubens. They come all in these light blue boxes. The tins and the cardboard boxes for the tube sets are always in the same blue. That series name is Coraline. And then you see here a PBK 9 and PB29 mixed. So we have ivory black again for those vegans under you to be aware of. But I must say the version is very, very pretty. I like it. Sorry, really have to drink in between because of the cold. My throat gets so damn dry, and if I have to cough all the time, that will be really nasty for everyone to listen to. So yeah. The next box is the Cotman version, made from PB15, phthalo blue, PB29, ultramarine blue, and PBK7. But I realized when putting down my swatch, because in the big 45 color set, there are some doubles in it, and I counted it wrongly and landed with the ivory black, and I realized it after my first strokes, because it is a very warm black, and it didn't fit. I was a second bit confused, then counted it again and realized, okay, it's wrong. So I lift it up as good as I can with my damp brush, and I will leave the box to dry completely before we repaint with the original, with the real Paynesgrey, and I will be switching to the next box first to give it some time to dry. So sorry about that mistake. Happens. Yeah, the next box is Van Gogh watercolors, which is the student grade paints from Royal Talents, who also are making the Rembrandt colors. And in the box after that is the Talents creation, which is the cheapest line of watercolor from Royal Talents. They don't offer for those line any kind of pigment information, but it is, I think, a good choice for example, kids, or if you really, really, really have a super tight budget. Of course, probably a lot of the colors aren't lightfast, but they're pretty good for how cheap they are. I've got the set of 24 tubes containing each around 10 milliliter color for only 10 euros. So that is a lot of color for so less of money. And the quality still is pretty decent for watercolors, pretty good in comparison to all the cheap watercolor brands that they are much better. And I'm using, I think, real pigments and no dyes. At least in my ultramarine video, it appeared to have some kind of slight light granulation. So it should be pigment based, I think. At least from how the colors look and behave. So the Van Gogh version is a mix of PBK6 and PV19, like this version as well. And even the Talent's Creation version, I would say it is from the color, it is pretty good to in comparison to the original one, to be honest. It's very, very similar. Funny, because that is probably the cheapest paint on the whole comparison video. Is one which is closest in hue to the original version. So yeah, we still have some information about the color. The first record of Paynesgrey as a color was in English in 1835. And yeah, because of his work, because of William Payne's work as an teacher, an art teacher, he was very soon the most fashionable drawing master in London. And some call him nowadays the Bob Ross of the 18th century. And yeah, his methods to increase the resources of watercolor art and especially of the rendering of sunlight in atmosphere was something special to him. So this version is from Holbein. That's a Japanese brand. It is made from PBK6, PB15, and PR122, which is a quinacridone pink. And this is also a version I found really, really beautiful. The tube is pretty new. I've bought it, I think, in summer. Never used it so far because I have so many sets I want to use up before using the newer tubes I've bought. But yeah, that is really, really, really beautiful. Love it. And the one now is from a Russian brand, which is super cheap, at least here in Germany, called Vista Artista. You may have seen my swatch of this brand in the Carmine video as well. Their full pans are a little bit smaller than normal full pans, but I've bought it for a price of around, I think, 85 cents per pan in a sale in Germany. So they are really, 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 really cheap. And at least I've bought this, and the other brand's name was Malevich, but the Vista Artista ones use real pigments. I mean, real expensive pigments. Their cobalt blue is made from an actual PB28 cobalt blue pigment and not a hue like the other brand, for example, does. So that is something. I was super surprised because on the shop I've ordered them, the pigments for Vista Artista weren't printed on, and I wasn't sure. From the Balevich one, they revealed those, so I knew I don't need to buy the hues, but I didn't know it with this brand, and I was super surprised to get a nearly full pan full of a real genuine cobalt blue for 85 cents. That is so absurdly cheap. So yeah, that's the Cotman version finally. And the Vista Artista, sorry, I forgot to mention it, is a PBK7, PB15 column 1, and also they're using a PV23, a dioxazine violet. Dioxazine violet is a little bit of a special pigment. There are a few pigments like this and a PY3, for example, which is both possible to get a lightfast or a non-lightfast version of. And of course, you never know with the brands which versions there are, especially which brands. With some brands like this one, but I probably would assume that this is more on the non-lightfast side, so I would only use this color from Vista Artista in my sketchbook works or adult coloring or stuff like that. Because of course, the non-lightfast versions are cheaper than the other versions. So most of the cheaper brands using more of the cheaper pigments, of course. So this is a Gansai Tampi paint from the Japanese company Kisho, and they not have labeled it as a Paynesgrey, but as a blue-black. It's the number 19. But I thought it is very, very much bluish black like all the others. So I will include this as well as the Kuretake Blue Gray Deep, which I'm swatching now. For Kishu, sadly, I don't get any information about the pigments. I didn't find anything at all about that brand. If you are having some information, it would be very, very much appreciated if you would share a link where I can look it up, because I didn't find anything. Kuretake has their information on their homepage. Nowadays, when I've bought my set around 15 years ago, the only thing I got was the Japanese written name and a number. So I didn't even know which color has which name. That was revealed years later, in Germany at least. And happily nowadays you can also look up the pigments they're using here. PR48 column 3, that is a non-light fast red. They're using PB27, so at least a blue, which is an original mixture as well, but like I said, it is a non-light fast pigment. And a PBK7. So yeah, sketchbook work only for this one, or where it is not necessary that it is light fast. I know that Kuretake has on their website that all of their colors are light fast, but they are not. If you are interested, you can watch the video or the blog from Kimberly Crick. She's done on the original big set 1 year light fastness test, and there are a lot of paints which aren't light fast. So yeah. This one I'm swatching now is from Sennelier La Petite. That is their student grade range. Sadly, they don't offer any pigment information. I only have this very small set of those of this brand, because I honestly, I'm not a fan of it. They're very, very low in their pigment ratio. They even colors like burnt umber. You see how light the brown is, and that is normally a very dark brown. And I must say, yeah, the professional line is very, very good. I like them, even when I don't have a lot of their color. But the student grade range didn't impress me. And also the version is very, very bluish, and that is a little bit too much on the bluish side for my personal taste. So the next one is from a company named Art Echo. I know they write down, like a lot of cheaper brands, that it is artist quality, but of course it isn't. I would say it is rather on the lower angle from student grade. It is not one of those super cheap, trashy colors, because we get information about the pigments they contain in their version PBK7, PB29, and PB15. So that is a very, very plus for this brand. like I said, especially I think the Paynesgrey here is probably the color I feel it the most, that they contain a lot of fillers, but it is still a decent quality. And when you are on a super tight budget, you can get those sets for around, I think 10 to 15 euros. So it is not a lot of money. And for those like I said, who are on a super tight budget, or maybe for your teenage kids or your kids, where you say you don't want to spend a lot of money, that could be a very good choice. I will be releasing in the next weeks, I think, a review video about that set. So if you're interested, you can watch this more detailed review video then. This one is also a Gansai Tambi paint from Moss Art named Moss Art Komorebi paints. They're definitely pigment based because you can see a lot of granulation going on in this one, probably containing PB29 because it looks very ultramarine bluish. So for my taste, it is too blue for an phthalo, damn it, why do I say phthalo for Paynesgrey? But it is still a beautiful color, so I will probably use it in some different ways. But they don't offer any information about the pigments, so you never know if there are some pigments inside the mixture which aren't lightfast. That is definitely something you have to be aware of. So, and the last color we will be swatching here is from a company from Poland called Renaissance. I think some of you may have already known or heard of the brand because it is an artist grade brand which is very, very cheap. Here in Germany, I would say Rosa Gallery, Renaissance, and Shinhan PWC in tube form are the cheapest artist grade paints I can get here. When I look up the price per pen or the price per milliliters, those three brands are by far more cheaper. But their version of Paynesgrey, I must say, feels for me so wrong in the color shade. It looks like a green gray and not like a black, blue kind of gray. It is too greenish for my taste. I will have to look for what I can use this color. And that is always why I like to have dot cards. Sadly, I can't get all the dot cards I want from every brand here in Germany. A lot of the dot cards are just not available here, like for Shinhan PWC, for example, or Turner's, or brands like that. I can't get the dot cards here, but I highly recommend if you say you want to invest in high quality artist grade paints, invest in dot cards, because over a monitor or screen you will always have some differences with the original, how it looks in real and how the color looks on the screen. And if you want to be 100% sure and don't buy a color which you don't like after trying to use it, it is always very, very helpful to look at a dot card if you have it. And if not, then of course videos like this one can help. At least there you can see differences, or on websites where offer good quality scans of swatches. But yeah, like I said, the Renaissance one absolutely isn't my cup of tea. I also don't use colors like Perylene green a lot, so I think that could be used similar as a Perylene green, because it is probably more similar to a Perylene green than a Paynesgrey. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, we will be swatching again a more accurate version of the original version, and a version I created for this video, because I said I want to have the same hue, but in a complete lightfast version. And I use for my carmine the Winsor & Newton carmine, which is made of this quinacridone pearlidone, because that is, as a single pigment version, the most accurate to the original Paynesgrey carmine, sorry. So I thought it would be the best version. Of course, I used the same yellow ochre in both versions. And instead of the PB27, I use a mix of PB15 and PB60, so phthalo blue and indanthrene blue. And I know it will look different here, and I don't know why it appears different on screen. The original mixture versus my own mixture, because the Paynes version, the original version, looks much more bluish as my version, but I can say I have the dried swatch before me, and as a dried swatch in reality, it looks exactly the same. So I'm really sorry I couldn't show this completely accurate on screen. Like I said, I don't know why it is so different, but you have to believe me when I say it is really completely similar. The only difference is that the original mixture is a little bit more concentrated in the upper part, and I haven't done it in mast tone in mine. I don't know why. I diluted it a little bit more, so that's the only difference. But the exact color shade is exactly the same. I will put up a close-up from all the colors, and I will put up a close-up from all the colors in two different versions, because when I recorded this video, it was already pretty late, and I only had artificial light because it was very dark outside, and I have done today again a close-up with a lot of daylight, and there you can get at least a little bit more of an accurate version, even if it's still a little bit different. But I will do a second close-up afterwards. So just that you know why there are two different versions. It is because I decided to do one with more natural light. But of course, being winter in Germany, even the natural light today, we have a completely gray sky, which is pretty normal for fall, winter, and the early springtime in Germany. We have a lot of gray skies and not much much sunshine here. So of course, it is still a little bit darker than when you are at a place where you have a lot of sunlight. When you have living in a warmer area of the world with a lot of sunlight, I'm definitely a little bit envious about that, because I hate cold weather. But yeah, Germany is sadly most of the year it's more on the cold side. So I have some information still left on my paper. Paynesgrey is a dark blue-gray, similar to neutral tint in its original mix, because similar use of pigments. I must say I haven't looked up the original mixture of neutral tint, if there is one. Will definitely when I come to do a video about that, but I haven't done it for this one. But that is the information I found. But Paynesgrey has a more lilac bluish shadow, and therefore is considered a warmer tint. The original, like I mentioned before, is not light fast, And the violet lilac shadow vanishes over time and leaves behind a neutral gray color. A significant number of Payne's works include this shade. He primarily used it for atmospheric perspective to create the impression of distance, and used it primarily in the middle distance. It is or can be very dark in best tone and reveals a very blue undertone when diluted, and can be found today, at least a color with the name, in nearly every range and brand of oils, acrylics, or watercolors. So it is, like I said, a very, very well-known color nowadays, which are offered by most companies. So, yeah, like I said, it looks a lot more bluish on the left side than my mixture, but it definitely is. So it looks more like my version in reality as well. So, like I said, I will do a close-up from all the brands so that you can take a better look at it. Also see the ones which granulates more easily, and also, yeah, can take a better look at the shade, and you can see how different they all look. It's really, really impressive how big the differences are between the brands if you see them next to each other, especially when you're seeing some next to each other which are completely different in their hue, like the bluer versions. The Kuretake one, you see there is a lot of shine here in this area. So that's probably the most shiny version. If you don't like shine on your colors, then that is definitely not the color for you. You can see here, even in the Art Echo one, the granulation, and also in the Moss Art version, you can see the granulation. So that was the late night close-up, and we will be doing the daylight close-up now for our end of the video. Like I said, here again, see the big shiny area here in mess tone. Also, the Kisho granulates, you can see it, you have a little bit of a color separation effect, which I normally really, really like in other colors, but for my Paynesgrey, I don't like it so much. So that is just a personal preference. I will definitely use the color because it's beautiful, but probably in different ways than I would normally use Paynesgrey. And you see how light now this version of my original mixture is, and how dark it was in the wet wash. That one definitely has a very, very big drying shift, the original mix. So here a close-up again. I think you can see that it looks different here. Now in this special angle I had just now, you can see it looks much more like or super identical in the shade like the lightfast version I did. But yeah, that is definitely something that I wanted to mention, that in reality they look the same. This one is just a little bit darker because I used less water, but the color shade itself is completely the same. So thank you so much for watching this very long video. I really, really hope you did enjoy it and that you learned something new, and yeah, hopefully also that the information about the pigment and its history was enjoyable and informative. And if you would leave me a follow or a thumbs up, it is very, very much appreciated because it helps me and my channel a lot. And yeah, as I didn't know, I don't know, I think I mentioned it recording this on the 1st of January, even when it will be, the video will be available mid of January. I wish every one of you and your families a happy new year, and I hope that your year will be full of love, of joy, and of course of a good health. And yeah, wish you a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon in one of my other videos. Bye bye.